Welcome to the Dean's List, engaging conversations at the intersection of entrepreneurship, artistic expression, and holistic health. Experience wellness in full color, where fashion, beauty, and art blend with body, mind, and soul. Embark on a journey that dresses your aspirations in style, paints your life with beauty, and sculpts your well-being in every dimension. This is the Dean's List, where inspiration is always in session. Welcome to the Dean's List, where we unravel the rich fabric of vitality, creativity, and business ingenuity. I'm your host, Alison Dean, and today we're stitching together the narrative of craftsmanship, sustainability, and timeless style with Emma, the creative force behind Maven Leather and Design. In her workshop, Tradition Meets Innovation, where each piece is meticulously handcrafted from plant-dyed American buffalo leather. Emma's dedication to quality and her passion for blending the art of leatherwork with eco-conscious practices have established Maven Leather as a beacon of artisanal excellence. Join us as we uncover the layers of Emma's journey from the first cut to the final stitch and how she's redefining luxury with every handcrafted piece. Hi,
Hello.
Emma.
Hi.
Hello. Ready to dig in? We're going to dig into some stuff. And also, shout out to fabulous bags behind you. Love it. All right. So starting off, your journey took a pretty significant turn when you received a gift of leather scrap. So can you share more about that moment and how it propelled you into leatherworking and ultimately launching a business?
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing how these little moments can really send you off on a whole lifetime, really. So I was in college. I went to the University of Maine and I was living in this awesome, like, communal household. It was so cool. And one of my friends who would come and eat dinner with us every night, Amy, she did a internship over the summer with like a large shoe company, and they would get all these leather scraps or samples and they would just end up in the trash. And I, at that time in my life, I was always creating. Even though I was in school for journalism, I was just giving my all to that while also giving my all to making as many clothes as I could, just creating a lot of wearable fashion. I've always really liked to express myself through my personal style, and she noticed that about me. And so when she saw all these scraps that were eventually going to go to the dumpster, she was supposed to take them to the dumpster. She told me not to tell anybody, but now it's been so long, but like, she intercepted them and brought them back to me. And at first I was like, oh no, I don't work with leather. It's too hard. I don't want them. And she was like, no, you want them. And I was like, okay, I'll keep them for a little bit. And if it doesn't work out for me, I'll just pass them along. And I really, from that moment on, I just never really went back to fabrics. It took me so long to really begin to understand leather. It's a very interesting material that really has a life of its own. And I was sewing with it because that's always been my primary kind of art form with visual art. And so I took to my sewing machine and I was breaking needles, and eventually I was breaking entire sewing machines and just kind of, but I just never stopped. And it really, it's amazing to look back on how it really just started with your friend thinking of you and seeing something maybe before you saw it.
That's the mark of a really awesome friend, I think, because I think that there are times in our life where we really are looking for, I don't know, like small indicators of like, where is my journey supposed to go? As I mean, it's not obvious for everybody. I feel like it's still not obvious for me, in fact, right? So I think that's amazing that someone close to you had a vision that perhaps wasn't as crystal clear for you, but it was for her. And now look at you. Like, it's a whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I
I
know.
love
I love it. I
that. That's
had this
amazing.
thought like a few years ago before I moved to California. I was in my old studio and I made one of my plant dyed bags. Not everything is plant dyed, but
Oh,
I'm able to do some hides plant dyed and get some colors. And all of a sudden, it just occurred to me. I made a bag, and I'm like, this bag belongs to Amy, and I like sent it off to her, and she still has it today. But it's just, yeah, it's like I carry her with me everywhere. Really,
I
yeah.
love that. Maybe there needs to be a bag called the
That is
Amy,
such an
like at some point.
obvious and amazing idea. Yeah, there will be.
Then everyone can have some Amy in their lives
Absolutely.
for awakening visions potentially. You can buy a bag and maybe understand purpose. I like
Yeah,
that. I mean, you can't sell
yeah.
it that way, but we can help that. Okay. So you talked a little bit about sewing machines, but from early memories of sewing with your mother to becoming a self-taught leather artisan, how have all those experiences shaped your approach to really crafting with leather today?
I would say that a big part of who I am as an artist today really branches out of necessity. And when I go
Mm,
way back into my upbringing and when my I was learning the craft of sewing from my mom, and then my nana also sews. Um, we did it because my mom wanted us to learn that skill. It was still very, I mean, I grew up in rural Maine, so people are still, doing traditional craft there, really, and it's in the home. And
yeah.
a lot of homes have sewing machines and they use them. And so we were creating our own clothes. We were doing little, handicrafts for the holidays. Like that's just what my mom taught us to do, to take up our time and our energy. And so I always kind of saw that as a necessity because if we ever needed a special dress or needed something that was, for a special occasion, we made it and we planned way ahead so that we could look our best because it just, I don't know, there's something really special about creating it yourself. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
that my mom always, when we would go to, the mall or something, it was just so hard for her to be like, I'm going to spend that amount of money on something that's like so poorly made, and then it's going to go out of style. Like we spent a lot of time at the fabric store, like going through fabric patterns, kind of planning out what we wanted our back to school clothes to be, later, like our formal gowns and dance costumes and all that. And so it just seemed such a necessary part of life. So when I eventually left home and went to school, I brought my sewing machine and I didn't think anything of it. And I was, then I really couldn't afford anything. So I was like, real, just asking people for their old T-shirts. I went through a phase where
Mm,
people gave me their old T-shirts, and I was making dresses and other shirts and pants and shorts. And I basically had a wardrobe totally made out of old bratty T-shirts.
I
Yeah,
love that though. I actually am like, that's
yeah.
genius. Okay.
And then so it really just became this necessary skill that I was using at all times to kind of be able to keep up with society. Like I couldn't afford what is fashionable or whatever Abercrombie and Fitch had or whatever, but I could make something myself and you'd want to know where to get it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And then to like later to just continue on that train of necessity, my designs, when I eventually, I have like a lot of, I feel like I have a lot of past lives or something, but eventually I moved to even more rural Maine and lived off the grid without
Oh,
electricity and refrigeration. And I had to like haul water, and that
wow.
period of my life really started to kind of branch the designs and like, okay, what can I make? Even though I wasn't making the bags yet, I was
Yeah.
like, all right, well, what is a good bag? And like, what could I have on my back right now when I'm in the woods. And like, so now it's kind of fun to branch the necessity with like also style and timeless.
Yeah. That's wow. That sounds like a book in the making. But sounds, sounds like a book. That's so cool though. It's also, at least when you were saying all that, it really made me, so there's like so much of me today where I really wish that I had more of those types of creative outlets as a child. So I did do some like ceramics when I was in school. Haven't done it since then, so like have no idea what that, what that would be now. But performing arts was really more of my crux. But I think about that, and I think about, and we'll get into some of sustainability and just kind of fashion today, but I think there's so much to be said for when you craft your own things, and also just as it relates to your own personal identity, right? So like the thing is about your own personality and your own self-expression that emerges when it's your hand that's creating it all. Like I think that's awesome. I mean, like, who cares about Abercrombie and Fitch,
Oh, I
right?
know. I'm
And
like,
they have
don't
far too
even
much
say their
fragrance in their
name. Like,
stores.
why did I even say their name?
Yeah.
Like,
It doesn't connect. It doesn't connect for this convo. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now let's like venture into the chapter around motorcycles. So motorcycle upholstery was a very unique entry point into professional leather design. I mean, I can guess what drew you to that specific craft, but I want to hear it from you. And how has it influenced, all the work that you're now doing, making bags
yeah,
at
that's kind
Maven?
of a
Yeah.
whole other, yeah, that's a wild thing. So at that time I was living in rural Maine, remote Maine, where I touched on earlier. And
Yeah.
I was getting into motorcycles. I wanted to ride. My dad rode when I was a kid, and I'd get to ride on the back to school, and I felt like so awesome on those days, like had my little helmet in my locker and stuff. And I just really, I wanted, for some reason, I just kind of got hooked on it, just the idea of it.
Hmm.
And so I started with a dirt bike. I learned how to ride the dirt bike. Then I got my license. And then I got my first street bike, which was a
Mm.
1980 Honda CM 400. It was awesome. It was like cherry pink gas tank and stuff. And it had a hideous seat on it. It had a huge ass seat on it. And anybody who knows the 80s motorcycles knows what this seat looks like. It's just ridiculous. And I'm small, so I couldn't really comfortably touch the ground with
Mm.
that much seat. And so that
Okay.
propelled me into wanting to know, how are these made? And how can I make this? Because that's always my first thought. Can I make this? And
I love
so
that.
I ripped the seat apart. I got some marine grade vinyl and sewed it. I blew up a sewing machine, or I blew the motor on a sewing machine. I had to get another sewing machine. And then I eventually like muscled my way through a seat, and it was okay looking, but it definitely kind of catapulted me into like, who does this? And pretty much a
Mm.
very small amount of people do. There's hardly any programs that teach you how to do it. And a few months later, I had spontaneously signed myself up for a course to study not specifically motorcycle seats, but custom auto upholstery. That was the closest I could get to it. And a few weeks later, I was moving into a rented room off Craigslist in New Jersey and going to school next to a strip club. Like, and my family was like, "What are you doing?" I had a degree in journalism at this point, and I was working in journalism. But yeah, I felt called to do it. That's what excited me. I was trying to make a website for my writing. It's, as you know, I'm sure, it's like your writing is your soul. It's so personal and like gut wrenching. And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
what would excite me to be able to connect myself with that's not so personal? And it was my
Mhm.
sewing. So found a way to kind of do
I
it.
love that so
Yeah.
much. Okay, like, as you were talking, the thing that popped into my brain was, like, a curated custom collection with Harley or
Ooh.
something, like, where it was, like, 3 bikes that they make have, like, a custom Emma
Oh,
seat on it. Like, I was
that
like
would be super cool. They're such a complete brand. I did do a few Harley seats. My dad has a super old Sportster, like a 1981 Sportster,
Cool.
and but
Yeah,
they're such a complete brand that their clients, they
they
get
don't
the
want that?
custom seat from Harley or something. Like, yeah, you're right. They should be
Oh.
reaching out to me. Do some.
Yeah! I'm like, I don't know, I feel like there's definitely an audience of that community that would totally be like, "No, no, I want the
Yeah,
Emma seat." Like,
yeah,
that's what I want. I want the Emma
exactly.
seat.
The
Okay.
Maven. Yeah. There's a lot of
Yes!
Maven
Yeah,
seats out
right?
there.
I love that so much. Okay, we talked a little bit, or you talked a little bit about Maine and all of that. So you moved across the country, Maine to California, and that obviously introduced a lot of changes in your life and in your work. So how did sort of those diverse landscapes and communities that you were involved in, how did those influence your growing artistic vision and also, I guess, your business ethos?
Yeah, wherever I go, wherever I've moved to, I've noticed that it definitely seeps into what I'm creating and my work. It's like when I've lived in the city, I
Yeah.
have a certain style. If I live in the woods, I'm like working with birch bark, or like it's just there's so it always is changing. And when I was back in Maine, I was doing a lot of the fine art and craft shows where you are
Mm,
juried in, and then you're kind of traveling all around and doing the show circuit. Um, and so I built my professionalism, I think, in Maine, and on the
mm,
East Coast, because I traveled all over the East Coast to do shows. And I think I built a really solid client base for the bags over there that were appreciative of elegance and timelessness and good
mhm.
design. And
Yeah.
then when I eventually kind made my way over to the West Coast and moved here, I did not know I was going to do this, but that's what happened. And then I really got to kind of go a little wild, like with my designs and colors and stitching, and really like kind of making something that you are never going to see again. And so
Mhm.
I love how I really built up a good base, like quality. Maine is all about quality. We're known all over the United States for all over the world for good Maine made craft. For me, like it's got to be like perfect. And so I built up that meticulousness. And then over on the West Coast, I got to branch off of that, keep it in place, but
Mhm.
also get create like even more creative and really express myself. And then yeah, I started writing like like kind of like dark comedy advertisements for my business over here too,
I
which
bet.
is like, oh yeah, it's California, everybody's in the movie business.
True. We need, like, film noir
Yeah,
and everything, right? Yeah, perfect.
yeah.
Yeah. That's actually interesting. I mean, I do think that where you are living, it really does inform so much of just your vibe. I mean, it can't not, right? Although, as someone that grew up and was born and bred in Los Angeles that's now living in Idaho, I also think that my like Angelino identity, it's a part of my DNA, right? So there's just elements of, but I guess it's calmed a little bit in Idaho. I guess I don't know. Okay. So given your commitment to sustainability, creating very timeless pieces, how do you see, this is an interesting question for all of my sort of more fashion inclusive brands, but how do you see the intersection of the fashion choices that we make and personal wellness?
Hmm. Yeah, there's definitely an intersection there for sure. Um
It has
First,
to be,
yeah.
right?
If I think about wellness, well, I think about a lot of things, but a big one is being confident in yourself, I think, under that
Yes.
umbrella is
Yes.
really being sure of yourself, standing on your own 2 feet, and being able to even set boundaries. I think that can make its way into style as well. Um,
Mhm.
so I would say that if you are secure in what you're putting on your body and you know that it was
Mhm.
your choice and it was your idea basically and it expresses you, and every day it can be something totally different. Like one day you're like, I'm going to be a badass punk rock musician, and then the next day it's like, I'm all business on this day.
Mhm.
And then we have if we can build up our wardrobes to allow us to express ourselves and be comfortable and be confident, um, then yeah, I would say that your personal style is definitely reflective of your wellness.
I love that. That was very
Yeah.
well said. So, what does wellness in general mean to you?
Ugh, it's been a total roller coaster to figuring that out. But I would say being kind to yourself and
Mhm.
really recognizing yourself as a spirit that deserves respect and deserves kindness and forgiveness. And so when I'm well, I feel like
Mhm.
I am doing yoga. I'm taking care of my body. I'm trying to eat. I mean, if I think a lot of artists will relate that it's just kind of hard to be on any kind of normal eating schedule because you're just kind of
Mm.
working at all these different hours, and it's really difficult to be like, okay, now I'm gonna go make myself food. Like I don't have time for that. But
Yeah.
so I'm finding a way to like get nutrients into my body, going outside and walking. I
Mhm.
think that that is all important to the craft. And I think that we forget. It's like, oh, I think or I'm just going to spend the whole day in my studio. I'm not going to leave. I'm not taking any calls. I'm just going to go for it today. Like, this is my day. And it ends up being like, okay, well, you've been saying that for 5 days in a row now. And you're kind of just in the dark, like making leather bags, like hunched over your sewing machine. So I try to go to for multiple walks a day, and
Oh, good.
I hang out with my dog a lot. My dog is my best friend. And so I think having that company, even like I would even say, like it's important for me to have an animal companion in my life because it's like this is someone who's right there with you, but is also going to be like, hey, take care of us. Like, let's go outside.
Yeah, yeah, right. It keeps you accountable. It's like an accountability
Yeah.
partner.
Yeah. I hope that answered
I need to go pee.
it. Yeah.
I love no, that's true. I think that's a very good example of so daily non-negotiables for you, getting outside, walking, when you can, doing yoga. Um, but like the eating portion, are you doing anything to help yourself in that capacity so that you are making sure your cup is
Yes,
full, if
I've
you will?
just committed to smoothies. I've kind of like rediscovered smoothies. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even
Yep.
have to think about like what consistency it's gonna have. You know, it's just like put it all in there.
Mhm.
And so that's
Mhm.
been really like giving me a great boost.
Helpful.
Oh yeah. And like you really do notice it. Obviously we notice it when we're not eating food or like getting all the
Yes.
nutrients. It's that's
Yes.
important.
Yes.
And then
You definitely need food to be creative,
yes,
I think.
absolutely.
Right.
Yes, and so just
Okay,
doing
good.
my best with that. I just discovered this new juice company that delivers, so now I'm getting the juice. Um, and let's see, I've surfed in the past few years. I've been learning how to surf, and now I'm just obsessed with that. So I get
Ooh.
hooked on that. Like I don't. That's a really um great aspect, newfound aspect of my life since I came over to the West Coast. And because I if it's a few days of like good waves for me at my level, then I'm definitely going to prioritize that. It's like with no question, where it's like I get just as hooked on that as I do on creating my work or writing or doing my artwork.
There's a lot to be said for the ocean, the power of the ocean, right? So I think as it relates to overall, I mean, there's countless stories of this too, of just how much the ocean has healed people of so many different ailments, or, you know, I mean, it could be skin issues, but it could just be just more traumatic things. I think in general, the ocean is powerful. So, and I think the ocean as a, for someone that's a creative, I think it really can kind of like wash over you in all the right ways to like give you a new injection of like creative power or something. So I love that so much. Ultimate, Emma's the ultimate cool chick, right? It's like the surfing, the motorcycles. She can make anything by hand. It's just like, okay, Emma, what else can you not do? I'm like, yes, like fangirl of Emma.
Oh.
Um, Love that. Okay, so wellness can extend beyond personal health, obviously, to the environment around us, like the ocean. Oh, don't get me started on the ocean and all the things we need to do to protect the ocean. But in what ways do your own eco-conscious practices in the leatherworking that you do, how does that contribute to the broader, you know, wellness of our planet, if you were to think about that?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's really good that I'm small. Like I feel like I'm able to really make decisions at this small level that allows me to be pretty close to the earth and eco-conscious and able to pass those values on to my clients. Um,
Yeah.
so I search for leather that is already in existence, and it's pretty much been rejected by larger companies that they kind of have this impossible feat of creating some kind of luxury quality item made of leather that's also perfect and all the same. And so that is not leather. Like leather, I think that sometimes we forget because a lot of the leather that we have is like been coated with a lot of plastics and chemicals, and it's been made to look perfect. It's been printed, it's been pressed with all the same pattern. And that's really not leather anymore. And so the leather that I work with has scars. You can see the grain, the natural grain of the animal, just like our skin, has imperfections, has scars, has signs of life. Like you can look at a hide and kind of see, like, oh, well, this is where the buffalo maybe rubbed up against something, or this is where the buffalo had maybe a little bit too much, or not too much because it's a buffalo, but a little bit of weight right there. And that caused like some kind of bigger wrinkles, like just like our own bodies. And so I feel really close to that concept of this leather. We've been working with leather for thousands of years. Like it really, like we don't
Yeah.
even know how many years truly we've been working with this material. And so it just feels like a mission for me to kind of be like, well, this can't just sit in a warehouse, like eventually on its way to the dumpster, where just like those leather scrap that Amy gave me years and years ago, it's like,
Yeah.
um this needs to be used. And at the same time, we have all of this fast fashion like cranking out all these other accessory goods, bags that cost, whatever. Some are expensive, some are ridiculously cheap, but they are going to fall apart. And they are
Mm-hmm.
also, this is material that is also making its way to the landfill. Um, and so I think that what I do is take this material that's really kind of been rejected for no good reason and create something that it's like that's never going to end up in the landfill. It's never going to. So in
Yeah.
that way, it
I
feels
love that.
sustainable. Um,
Yes. Well, also the fact that you're using scraps, or you're using pieces of leather that would otherwise also be going there. So you're continuing the I'd say the lifeline of that particular piece of leather. I love that so
Yeah, thank
much.
you. And then in addition to that, I do work with plant dyes, which you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier. And that's been my own that's a whole other journey. Like people will, that's a lifetime, multiple lifetimes. Like that's lineages of knowledge that I hope to someday gain. And so I love to do my dye baths to try to get a color palette that's mostly naturally plant dyed. And I'm
Yeah.
able to do that because I am so small. So I dye a lot of my hides just in this little like back alleyway. And I used to do it
I
in
will.
Maine, like on a beautiful piece of land. And so it's not possible at this moment yet, but I'm always heading in the direction to be like, okay, well, what if my entire color palette was naturally, sustainably plant and insect dyed, using
Yeah.
knowledge that dates back centuries in human civilization.
So
So I'm
cool.
like, it's,
Mhm.
I realize that I'm not quite there yet, but that's where my head is at the, as the operator of my business, the owner of my business. So,
Your head's in the right, I think, headspace is basically what we're
thank
saying here. Yeah, you're thinking about the right things related to your products and what you want your products to represent. Um, okay, so shifting gears a little bit, um, technology is a through point for all of us. Um, so for you, how has technology enhanced, your ability to create and distribute your work? Or yeah, how does technology work
yeah.
within the Maven space?
Technology is such a double-edged sword. Like
Mhm.
I when I went
Mhm.
to school or when I came back from auto upholstery school, first I drove from Maine to Baja, Mexico and back, and then I moved onto a piece of land, and it felt so like weird to be on technology out there, like to be on social media. But
Yeah.
when I was in school, I started to make a little Instagram account for what I was like making at my auto upholstery program. And by the time I got back from that trip and was like, okay, now I'm going to start my motorcycle seat business, I already had clients. And so most of my clients were from all over the country who had found me on Instagram. And I don't have
Yeah.
like I'm not like some crazy, whatever people who have a lot of followers are called. I was just kind of minor. And but it launched my business and it kept me, I mean, I was doing a lot of motorcycle seats, working with a lot of people. And then so when I branched into the seats, I made a separate account and people kind of went over there. And so it's a good way for people to follow me when I was doing the shows. Those were, from different states, different communities, and those people have kept up with me. And I have people who met me at a show in like 2019 in Massachusetts who have purchased from me multiple times and have watched me move into my van, drive across the country, do shows, like all of a sudden rent a space in California, then be like, I'm moving to California. And it's like they've just followed me all the way across. And it's amazing, like that people have stuck with me. And
Well,
now it's,
well,
yeah, so
yeah.
it's been a benefit.
I think people like seeing people's journeys. I think that's like a component of human nature, right? Especially someone like you who's um really putting it out there in terms of like what this business is, right? And a glimpse to like how you work and I don't know, just what you birthed basically, because it's so cool. I I am not surprised that you have a lot of people that are following that journey. I mean, I think you're actually a great representative of what people I think would be drawn to following, just because it's a very interesting story, right? Like the whole evolution of it all, and also I think what's still to come, because you've got a lot more creativity left in you. You know what I'm saying? Actually, that's a good pivot to the next question, which is because I think this is an element of extending your creativity, but collaboration and community are very evident in all the things that you've done. But especially now, you have a lot of other artisans that you've brought into your showroom, which is awesome. So, how do those collaborations ultimately enrich the work that you're doing with Maven? Yeah.
Yeah, it enriches it so much. As I spend pretty much all day in the studio by myself, like that's just the nature of what I do. And that's the nature of what a lot of artists who I carry down in the store, that's what they do as well. And so it's really wonderful to have created this space where people feel like they're part of something, even though they have a
Hmm.
very independent studio practice. And we counted the other day, and I have over 40 independent artists,
Wow.
jewelers, designers, who are showing their work downstairs. And some of them are small, super teeny tiny little labels that I don't know the person personally. Some of them I do know the person personally. And a lot of
Hmm.
them are artists who I did shows with or have met along my own journey. And so
Yeah.
when I decided to go for it with my store, I have a store underneath my studio in Cayucos, California. And at first, it was filled with all of my work. It was pretty much like my studio was down there. I was making work and I was putting it out on the floor. And then eventually, like, I couldn't
Hmm.
keep up with that all on my own. So it's like, well, why not bring some other people in? And then I brought in this jeweler right here is he works with all kinds of materials, but he works with jade and makes amazing like jade jewelry. And that's a stone
Cool.
from the earth. It complemented my materials from the earth. So together we kind of create a
Yeah.
storm, and then more people are coming in. And then now when people come into the store, they're just like, they're able to support artists they've never heard of before, but then also artists who are in their community. And it just keeps
Yeah.
that conscious consumerism mindset going, like where it's like, it matters what you buy, it matters what you put on your
Yes.
body. Like,
Yes.
think
Yeah.
about it. Like, you can support somebody in your community or in another community who really needs it. And I think too, for me, I've just always had a lot of respect for the hustle that it takes to be a full-time professional artist. And
Yeah.
there have been times when I had no, my like $100 in my bank account, and I'm like chasing down an invoice from this one project that's going to allow me to like fix my car and just going to all these shows. And it's like, we've all been in that same boat. So it really is meaningful to me to include as many people as I can to try to get to help. Like, if they need a little leg up, I want to be the person to
Hmm.
give it, because I needed it and I still need it sometimes. So it's like, it's important to kind of support other artists for me.
I'm like more fangirls coming at you for
Yeah.
that answer. We love that answer. Yeah, that's amazing. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that's well said. I actually think too, when you're creating a community of creativity, right? I think that also just imbues you with more of that creative fire, right? It's when it's like really just all around you. And I think it also propels some interesting possibilities for different synergies that you wouldn't actually consider, right? It's like, where does the jade jewelry designer maybe have an incorporation into one of your bags at some point with a piece of, I don't know, maybe it's some kind of something hanging off something. I don't know. This is where your creativity is probably going to override
Yes.
mine. But anyway, but there's just, there's a lot of
Mhm.
possibilities, right? Okay, we've reached the quick fire
Okay.
round, Emma.
Okay.
So, um, first thing that comes to mind, no stress. Yeah, have fun. Okay, early bird or night owl? When do you get your, best work
Early
done?
bird.
I love that.
Hmm.
Surfing requires
Hmm.
early birds. Coffee or tea? What fuels your work
Tea.
day?
I don't drink coffee. Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite tea
Well, I'm
flavor?
on yerba mate right now. But
Oh,
I
look at
love
you.
like an Earl Grey, a Lady Grey. I love tea. I love it. Yeah.
Okay. I love it. Favorite color?
I don't even know. I don't have one. Red, probably red.
All color. Maven. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay. I think red too. What was the first job that you ever had?
Well, Blueberry raking.
Oh, okay. Someone said cherry picking. So this is like it's becoming a thing, I think. Like I love that.
Mhm.
Okay. What's the one app that you can't live without? Hmm.
I would have to say, I guess I would have to say Instagram for business purposes. I don't really use it personal. I don't have the personal thing going on, but
It's good.
business, yeah, I need that.
What's the one word that you would use to describe your business journey?
uh, Honestly, blessed.
Okay. Love it. If you could have any entrepreneur as a mentor for a day, who would it be?
Ooh, Erica Badu.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. What's a book that has significantly influenced your business mindset or just your mindset, if not business?
That's tough. I'm right because I love to read. Let's see on that one. I really liked Amy Poehler's Yes Please, I would say.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's a great
Love
one.
that. Besides your own, what is another, this might be hard for you. Besides your own, what is another favorite small business?
Oh. Um, Honestly, I'm gonna say my some collaborators, Room for Cream Films. That's who I
Mhm.
collaborate with for my film projects, and we just are like I love their create. They have the same DIY creative vein that I'm in, and so together, like
Yeah.
they're yeah,
Magic.
yeah.
Okay. Love it. If you could instantly acquire one new skill, what would it be?
Uh, Playing the piano and singing.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. If you could time travel to any period in history, which era would you visit?
Ooh. Part of me wants to say the future, but I think I would probably say the 80s. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If you weren't doing this, what else would you be doing?
Writing, which I'm still doing, but I would be making an equal go at screenwriting when I am on in the background. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. You have to. All right. Thank you for that quick fire. A couple more questions left. Looking forward, what aspirations do you have for Maven Leather? I mean, I think we've talked about a few things, but building community and all that stuff. But how do you envision the business evolving in the coming years?
I would say that I really would like to figure out a way to do what I'm doing now, but maybe on a little bit of a larger scale so it doesn't always fall on my shoulders, the creating.
Yep.
So I'm starting to make some moves with that, but it's definitely expensive to make that leap into having an
Yeah.
artisan team. Um, but that's
Yeah.
definitely on my radar. But other than that, like I really just want to continue I would say more filmmaking on I just I can't quite like explain the whole thing, but it's like I'm creating a whole world and it involves film. So I would say more filmmaking
Hmm.
projects.
So
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. I have a film
Oh,
degree that I don't really use anymore, but
ooh.
well, I guess I sort of do. I mean, I guess elements
Yeah.
of this we can
Want to
consider
act
could
in
fall
my
into that.
zombie apocalypse Maven that I'm making?
I love that.
Not a
Hey, we
joke.
can talk, Emma. We can talk.
Yeah.
We can talk. Uh, I love that so much. All right. So, what is one like key piece of advice that you would offer to other aspiring entrepreneurs? Maybe people that are looking to be in the sustainability or eco-conscious space, but maybe not. Maybe just a good piece of advice. Anything that comes
Okay,
to mind.
first thing comes to mind is work in the service industry. Just because I feel like it really like I was a server bartender for so many years, like and it's just that seeps into all of my work ethic. I feel like everybody should do that. But the other, the more like targeted piece of advice would definitely be to get over your imposter syndrome and
Yeah.
just kind of listen to yourself and put something completely authentic out there. Don't really worry about what other people are doing. I would say like don't even follow people. Don't look at other people's stuff even. Like just do what you're doing. Put more of yourself out there.
Love that. Go with your gut. Trust your gut. Okay, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you were hoping I would?
Somehow I feel like I didn't talk about like my one of a kind, the stitching.
Oh, I think we should talk
Okay.
about that actually, because that was actually one of the things that I feel like it was one of the things that really drew me to all of your work. Was it was so unique. The stitching that you do, it's so interesting, and it's so like there's elements of like mystery and I don't know. It definitely was the thing. And then, depending on the colors of stitching that you use, I'm still like kicking myself that I didn't get that blue bag that you had, because I'm like, damn, that was so fire. Like it was the coolest bag. Like I took like so many screenshots of that thing and I'm like, ugh. But also for everyone out there, Alison doesn't really need any more bags. But that being said, yes, please talk about the stitching, because I think that is like, how did that all come to be? It's a unique, I mean, obviously we know that you're very adept at the sewing machine, but like, where did that weave itself into the bags?
This kind of comes to me in the moment. I don't plan anything out. And it's just a way to really give the piece that extra edge. Like it's not just a good, well-designed bag. It's also has this like little detail, or in some cases, big details that make it so it's like, yeah, this is your bag. It has this stitching. And I really just, if people ask me to do the same stitch over again, it's almost impossible. I just kind of like, it's never going to be the same thing again. So it's able to really drive it home that it is one of a kind. And it
one of a kind.
Yeah. And it got, really, it started to become a whole part of Maven in California. Like I was doing it in Maine, but it's really kind of blossomed out here where people are like, I need it to be stitched.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's a huge, it's like a signature for you now in a certain way, or at least I feel like when I see something of yours, I'm like, yeah, that's a Maven piece. So I think that there's,
cool.
It adds to the cool factor, Emma. It just adds to the cool factor. Okay. On that note, can you please tell everyone how they can find you, since everyone wants to find you now, and tell them how they can make an acquisition of a Maven item?
Yes, please find me. My website is mavenleather.com, Maven leather.com, and I have an online store there as well. So you can purchase my collections. I put up new offerings whenever I drop collections on mavenleather.com. And then my Instagram account is Maven Leather. And then I also have an Instagram account for my store downstairs, and that's maven.cayucos, which is CAYUCOS. And that's where you can support other brands too. Yeah.
Love that.
And then awesome. I also have a little deal. I want to do a deal for the Dean's List listeners. And so if you come to the website and you type in the code Dean's List, you will get free shipping for 2024.
That would have helped me 2 weeks ago. So that's like, I love that so much. Thank you, Emma. That's amazing.
Thank you for being here and asking me to do this.
Oh my God. I'm like so happy to have you on. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this convo. Emma is someone that we're fangirling. So find her. I'm going to post all the social stuff below. So no issues on that front. We'll make sure everyone can find you. Thank you so much, Emma, for being on the Dean's List.
Thank you, Allison. Yeah, thanks.
And thank you all for tuning into this episode of the Dean's List. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to stay updated, and follow us on Instagram at official_Dean's List and YouTube at It's Official Dean's List. I'm your host, Alison Dean. Until next time.